Tradition says that certain places were never meant to be seen by the living. Places where light does not enter, where the sky seems to have been torn out by the roots, leaving only a void that breathes. Enoch was taken to one of these places, not to judge, but to witness. He rose, carried by the angels without resistance, feeling only the weight of the silence around him. There was no wind, no stars. The world seemed suspended, as though creation itself hesitated to draw near. The angels did not speak. Enoch could not either. Something in that darkness was watching him before he could perceive any shape. Then came the first sound, a muffled plea, a supplication that did not come from a body, but from a spirit being crushed. Then another, and another, cries intertwining like chains dragged across the ground. Enoch realized he was not standing before a place. He was standing before a wound. That point in the north did not exist as part of the world. It was a piece torn from it, a territory reserved for souls that had corrupted everything they touched, a space where the angels did not bring comfort, but judgment. And the further the angels carried him, the more creation recoiled, colors fading, sounds falling silent, the air growing heavy like soaked stone, until Enoch saw, for the first time, the abyss the ancients called the frightened heaven, a region made to reveal what humanity tries to forget, a veil where time does not heal, a silence that presses on the chest like hands, and a black fire that does not illuminate, it devours. It was there, among shadows that seemed to breathe, that Enoch understood. God's justice is not merely a promise. It is a place, and in that place, nothing remains hidden. In the Valley of Redemption. Enoch's ascent continued until the world below lost its shape. The earth stopped being recognizable. It became only a smudge erased by distance. The height seemed infinite, yet the weight did not come from the flight. It came from the silence. Nothing accompanied that passage. No wind, no light, not even the faint murmur that usually inhabits the sky. All of creation seemed to have abandoned the path along which he was carried. The north approached like a region torn from the logic of the world. Colors faded little by little until the sky took on a washed-out, almost sickly tone. The air grew thick, clinging to his face like a damp veil, making each breath heavy. The atmosphere did not receive them. It recoiled. It was as though everything in that space rejected the presence of life. Below them, the earth began to split, not in mountains or natural fissures, but in an opening that looked as if it had been ripped apart by something colossal. A massive cut crossed the surface, too dark to reveal its depth. The darkness rising from that abyss felt like uneven breath, a harsh exhalation rising from beneath creation itself. When they landed, the ground reacted to their touch. It was not solid. It was not stone. It felt made of ancient layers, compressed by ages of weight and lament. The soil sank slightly under each step, creaking in a way that resembled old structures yielding under pressure. There were marks upon the surface, elongated lines, depressions, shapes almost human, formed and erased over and over again, like memories pressed into the earth. Ahead, the veil breathed. Darkness rippled in slow cycles, expanding and withdrawing like a living organism. Between those waves rose columns of black fire, standing like pillars of an invisible structure. These flames illuminated nothing. They swallowed every glimmer. Near them, rivers of white fire twisted like molten steel, dividing the terrain into trembling paths. Beside the extreme heat, blocks of ice jutted out, crystalline and constantly cracking, as if trying to escape their own shape. The sound filling the horizon was made of lament. It did not come from a single point. It echoed across the entire veil, as if the darkness itself had learned to scream. The air vibrated with those distant voices, long, unbroken, heavy with memory. Enoch realized that place did not follow the order of the living. It was an extension of justice shaped into matter, a territory where nothing hid, where each step revealed that creation had boundaries, and that veil marked the place where it refused to advance. He had crossed the threshold. The rest of the descent began there. The veil stretched out like a living crater. The darkness moved slowly, breathing in waves that seemed to pulse beneath the ground. Columns of black fire rose from the abyss, twisted like charred roots, consuming the light around them. Between them, rivers of white flame crossed the terrain in jagged lines, so bright they seemed to slice through the air. Near the extreme heat, blocks of ice pushed up from the earth, cracking without pause, releasing sharp bursts that echoed like muffled cries. The souls were scattered throughout the veil. Some crawled across the ice, opening pale fissures in their own spiritual form. Others passed through the fire, melting and reforming without rest. None died. All remained conscious, dragged between extremes that never met. The sound of that place was continuous, a distant lament filling the air, coming from many points at once, as though the veil itself remembered what each spirit had ruined in life. Enoch moved forward slowly. The ground trembled beneath his feet, not like a quake, but like a response. It was clear that this space did not exist to receive, only to reveal. Every shadow, every fracture, every burning column made it evident that creation offered no waiting and no comfort there. The true descent began in that silence full of voices. Beyond the open veil, the ground sank into successive chambers, formed not of rock but of hardened, dark, and uneven material, as though shaped by countless bodies pressed together through the ages. Each chamber felt narrower than the one before it, as if the world were tightening around anyone who entered. The first was filled by a thick, incandescent white river. The souls drifted upon it without sinking, consumed by a heat that did not burn the skin, but the essence. The current dragged them in slow circles, forcing each one to relive the memories they had tried to erase. Further on, a plain covered in broken statues stretched beneath a rigid mist. The figures were molded into human, animal, and hybrid shapes. They looked like forgotten idols, and the surface of the statues glowed in a deep red, like metal on the verge of melting. Among them, souls were pulled and thrust against the heated material, dissolving and reforming without pause. Another chamber exhaled a cold that seemed older than creation. Currents of ice pierced the ceiling and the ground, forming structures that held spirits in twisted positions, forcing them to bear their own weight for unending spans of time. The air vibrated with a dry sound, produced where the ice met remnants of ash. Enoch moved through the chambers in silence. Each step made it clear that nothing there was improvised, only severe order. The justice of that place was not swift nor impulsive. It was meticulous. And the further he advanced, the more he understood that no soul was there by accident. As he left the inner chambers, Enoch was lifted once more by the angels. The veil remained below like a living organism, breathing torment. The white fire, the cracking ice, and the pulsing shadows grew smaller as he ascended. Yet nothing in the vision lost its force. Every detail stayed sharp, as though etched into the memory of the world. When they crossed the boundary of the north, creation began to move again. The colors returned slowly, as if hesitant to reappear. The air grew lighter, though burdened with another kind of weight, the weight of what Enoch had understood. The punishment he had witnessed was not excess nor severity. It was structure. It was consequence. It was remembrance crystallized in the form of a place. From high above he saw the ordinary earth, cities, rivers, families, people who lived unaware that justice possessed its own geography. The contrast between that and the veil struck him like a cold blade. Most continued forward without noticing the trail they left behind. Small acts, small corruptions, choices that seemed harmless yet, gathered together, carved a path towards a destiny no one would dare face while awake. When the angels set him back upon the ground, Enoch could scarcely stand. The entire vision pressed against his bones. Even so, he understood why he had been taken, not to fear, but to remember. Justice is not invisible. It exists, it breathes, and it waits. And one who has seen it can no longer live as though nothing were happening beneath creation.